All right, so if we look over what we did last time, if I hit Alt-G to run this, I'm sorry, Control-G rather, you can see that we have a ball that's moving. And we really want to just move this thing around with our maybe controller. So let's take what we have. We have an input binding already in place. Let's see if we can open that up. This mice bounding, which has the LMB here. So just for testing purposes, for simplicity's sake, we'll use this left mouse button now just to click and rotate it to see how to do that. So one thing we're going to need on this object is we're going to need a script canvas. And so we can do some visual scripting. And let's make a new script here. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this over. Opened up on my second monitor. And I'm going to go ahead and save this as move board. So inside of my marble game here, I'll just throw the script inside of here. And I have one sort of already set up called move board. I'm just going to save it over that one. So inside of our marble game. So here we have a clean one. Doesn't look like it's saved over. Let's try that one more time. So file, save as, marble game, and then replace it. There we go. Now it looks like it took it. All right, so the first thing I want to do, just sort of as a refresher, is I want to grab, we have these game entities in our entity section, and as our entity is activated, we want to create an ID and start creating some simple values. So if you want to test along the way, which is what I like to do, I just kind of add a print statement here and there, and I'll just put like test here, just to make sure that it's firing off. So then we can get rid of value. We're not really sending in a value just yet. So we just have this simple thing. It says test. I'll scale this down. You can see it put the move board in there. When I hit Control G, actually, remember, hit your tilde key, and then I'm going to hit Control Shift C to clear this out, and then Control G, and I'm going to hit Escape just so I can leave that. But you can see test appeared. So our test is clear. That seemed to work. So let's fire up script canvas again. Now the next thing I want to do is create a ID that is only specific to this particular object. And the way to do that is by creating a by using the create input events notification node. So what this is going to do is it's going to give me an ID for a specific event. And what I want to do is grab my LMB action name. So let's link this up here. And I'm going to break that and put it, here's my out. Now what this is doing is you can see local user ID is 0. The action name is LMB. If you forgot what LMB related to, it's this event name here. So as we hit our left mouse button, right, and if you see down here, kind of bring this down. If we, our LMB is connected to the mouse's left mouse button there. And what I'm looking for when I do this is I'm looking for an input. And what that input is on held. So if we look at our inputs, actually we want to do our entity inputs. So let's type in input here, and then you can see all the different inputs that exist. So under gameplay input here, I'm looking for onPressed. So I can grab my onPressed here. And now you might be like, well, how do I connect this? Well, if you select your input here and you turn on the display connection controls, you can see now we have a input connection here. So what I'm going to do is grab my out from here, actually from here, and I'm just going to connect that. Now the next thing I want when it's looking for source is it's like, well, what is the input that you're looking to connect to? Well, that's the left mouse button. So if I grab this and I link it here, actually, you know what, let's just go straight across. I'm going to dissolve these. And then I'll drag my print and then connect it to the out here. And let's hit Control S and go back to our scene. And then you can see when I press left, the word test is popping up at the bottom console. So perfect. So we know that is working, right? So we know that when we press here, we're registering that command. And it might seem like a little bit overkill, but when you're first starting to do these things, and by the way, if you hold shift and hit up arrow, it'll straighten those out. As you're first starting to create these things, it's a good idea to throw test statements throughout your things, or as you're learning to debug. All right, so when we press, we get a value, right? And essentially what we can do is take that value and multiply it by another number and use that later to move or rotate our vector on a certain angle. If that doesn't make sense, just hang with me for a second. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to look at multiply, and I'm looking for this math multiply here. And same thing here, if you're looking for that, you can look for math on the side here, and we have our add, divide, length, multiply. So for example, this add I'm probably going to use in a little bit, and it has 2 values. And what's nice about this value is it's almost like a generic, where I can plug in anything that is math related, a float, a num, or whatever into this. So for example, what I want to do is grab that value of the press, and I'm just going to drop it in here, and you'll see that the value changes to a number there. And then I can multiply it by a number. So I can multiply it by 2 or whatever I want, and I can use this 1 times 2 to give multiplied value to be used for something else, right? And what I want to do is I want to use it to rotate my piece, right? Because we're making a game where you're rotating it left and right and back and forth. So here's our rotation, and what I can do is I can use something called a create from values. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to do create from, and then values, and you're going to see a bunch of these. Like there's a create from values for color, the matrix. I'm looking for something that is a vector. So here's a vector 3. What's cool about this is it can take this number and I can use it to plug into a specific slot. So for example, say I want to move this thing on the z-axis, right? So this is one value. And another value that I'd like to grab, so I have this value here, I'd like to get the local rotation of this move, the board that this script is attached to. So I'm going to get local rotation, if I can spell that correctly. Let's see, get local rotation here. And we're going to plug that into here. And then, so I'm actually getting the local rotation, and it has its own value here, right? So, and I have this value that comes in from here, right? Like I'm getting this 1 times 2 value that gets plugged into the z-axis of this. This isn't really doing anything until we actually apply it to our rotation. So all of this is getting fed into here. All right, so this might be a better way of looking at this. So the out is just kind of giving us the ability to keep moving down this sequence. But the 2 numbers I want to add is the local rotation. So that right now our rotation is set to 0, 0, 0. But I want to multiply that, or I want to add whatever that incoming rotation is, which is 1 times 2. That's when our mouse button clicks. So let's take a look at that. See, this right here is like when we click, we're going to take that value and we're going to add those 2 values together. And those values are what is going to move our rotation, or it's going to rotate our object. So I'm going to plug the first value and I'm going to add that to this new create from values here. So now we have like 2 plus 1 or 2 plus 0, and then as we click, it's going to keep updating it. Well, how the heck do you update it? Well, that's where our setting we're going to get our rotation, but now we want to set the rotation of our object. So if we look at, let's see, gameplay here, and then we look at, let's see, I mean, I could just type in set rotation. Let's see, set local. There we go, set local rotation. Now when we set this, we do this, and then the 2 numbers that are added together, we can just plug that into here, right? And then what that's going to do is that's going to, on the z-axis, set that rotation. Another thing we kind of want to do, especially as our nodes get bigger, is I'm going to select all of this, and I'm just going to right-click, and I'm going to group this together. So because this has, for me, it's sort of an input system, right? I'm going to right-click and do input, and it designates it with that group color there. So I can do when, here, rotates our game board. Okay, now I'm going to hit Control S to save this. And that looks pretty good. Let's see if it works though. So I'm going to hit Control G in here. And now when I left click, you can see I'm rotating my game board with a click. Now I don't want it to be on Z, right? I want to rotate on a specific angle so my ball can roll down. Now, and in all honesty, I really want to use the axis of my mouse or my WASD keys. And in the next video, I'll show you how to do that. But for now, let's go ahead and just, so I can show you, say I want to rotate it on the Y-axis, right? Well, let's do X, just kind of. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to hit Control G. And as I left click, you can see it's flipping it around. Now, that's a little intense. So maybe we can do a rotation. We can multiply that by maybe 0.1, and it won't be so intense. And now when I left click, you can see moves a little bit better. Not as exciting as, actually most of these should both be probably moved up a little bit. So this and this. Let's move that up a lot more. And actually we should probably move up our camera too, right? Let's actually look, let's position this. Let's do this right. All right, so let's hit Control G. And I left click and something's not right there, which we might have to fix in the next video. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, now it's working. I think they were just kind of intersecting funny. I went through the floor. All right. And also maybe the floor will set up a trigger object that restarts the game. All right, that's it.